Soweto Derby weekend. Soweto Derby weekend, the big game in South African football. Whether or not teams are looking for trophies or whatever, this is a very big game with very high expectations. I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to sit here and say that there isn't a clear favorite going into this. There is a clear favorite team. Orlando Pirates is the form team. 28 or 29 games played up to this point and only 3 losses. They're sitting number 2 on the log. They've gone into the knockout rounds of the Champions League, unbeaten from their group. They're having the season of their lives. This is an Orlando Pirates team that is doing something that they have not done like this in their history. They face the Kaizer Chiefs team that is sitting number 5 on the log. A wishy-wishy season. You don't know what they're going to give you with each game. They might win, they might lose. It's a very roller coaster type season that Kaizer Chiefs is having right now. And they come into this game with a lot of missing pieces. Duba's out injured, possibly a long-term injury. Dupree's might or might not be back. The form players, the star players that we look at, Bosirino, are guys that are just coming back from injury. And the guy that won the man of the match in the last game is somebody who was laid off for a very long time also with injury, George Matlo. So it's a limping Chiefs team, but I don't think even at full strength, that would have changed a lot. These two teams have similar weaknesses, similar, not the same, similar weaknesses, and a lot of the same strength capabilities. So let me do this. Let me get into each of the teams. I'm going to start off with Kaizer Chiefs. Kaizer Chiefs is an interesting team because if you look at the stats, if you look at the chances created, if you look at the goals scored, Kaizer Chiefs just so happens to be the 3rd best scoring team within the league. This means that Kaizer Chiefs does carry some danger. Look at the game that they played versus Iskukune, the last league game that they played versus Iskukune. Kaizer Chiefs had 18 shots. 7 of those were on target. 7. They created 3 big chances and missed all 3. Kaizer Chiefs is a team that creates. They will get into the box, they'll run into the box, they'll do all of those things. But they're killed by a lot of their finishing and decision making. A lot of those chances that are missed are chances where you look at the players and you go, Mara guys, how couldn't you just shape properly and put that ball in? A lot of them are balls that are played directly to the goalkeeper in open situations. Think about Uduba breaking free, I think it was twice, versus free agents and not being able to take those chances. So they're a team that creates a lot. Kaizer Chiefs chooses to play with almost a front 4, with 3 attacking players, 3 frontline players, and a 10, sometimes even a double 10. And they commit a lot of players forward. They're trying very hard to try and get those goals. But this also hurts them. Because in committing those 5 players, they become very weak in terms of counter-attacking. If you can win the ball up high versus the Kaizer Chiefs, you will get chances. The biggest weakness of the Kaizer Chiefs just so happens to be the left and the right back. And I don't go into what other people have said, other analysts have said, where everybody has said that it comes down to 1 player or 2 players, a cross or a frosler. I think that situationally, that's what catches Kaizer Chiefs out is the way that the team defends as a whole. So because we've committed 5, what was happening earlier in the season when we were struggling a lot is that Sirino on paper would be the left wing. But because he drifts inside and becomes the 10, it means that Cross has to deal 1v1 versus sometimes overloads. And what Chiefs' defense was choosing to do was to run out and try and catch that threat before it gets too far inside the half. And when he runs out, these two are not communicating, and sometimes you didn't have the cover of that central defensive midfielder who often vacated that space or was too excited and joined the attack. And that meant that Totally no Mikel had a lot more higher grade things to do in their defense. And to him and to Dottley and to Miguel, I think I feel that they're very excited. They're two players that are the same type of player. And they often find themselves following the ball. Think about the goals we saw versus Mamelodi Sundowns. Mamelodi Sundowns did what they did to Kaizer Chiefs. They follow the ball and often put whoever's on the far post in a tough situation because there's gaps now in the center. So if you think about the crossing goals that were scored versus us, Morris, a goal that was scored by him, if you look at what I think it was Imakesi did versus us, it was just taking advantage of those spaces. Or it would be a situation where somebody cuts in and takes that person out and can play balls into the center on the ground, P-spot, top of the box, for them to be finished. So that is one of the biggest weaknesses of Kaizer Chiefs. In terms of strengths, that front four attacking tends to overwhelm teams. So Chiefs is good at overwhelming teams. The beginning of the season, when Chiefs was scoring at will very early in games, what would happen is that Usirino would have the ball and he'd be in the 10. He'd have a player in front of him, let's say Patrice, who's taking on the defenders and pinning them back. You'd have a Duba who was coming off of the left, the right-hand side. And then you'd have Shabalala, who liked to make sort of a dummy run, which meant that even if I'm a midfielder, central defensive midfielder, I have to decide whether to chase Shabalala or to look out for this one or to look out for that one. So we saw Cirino score a goal or two from the top of the box on transition, because then nobody's coming to mark him. If somebody came out to him, they'd play it in. Lately, what they've been doing is that they've been trying to attack teams almost from a wide in, and it feels like it's by force because Usirino begangeko. So Abom don't do well in the 10 position for me personally. Doesn't do well in the 10 position. But when he's drifting in, not from winger, but wide-ish, a wide forward role, that's where the chances have been coming. One-on-one with the defenders, taking them on. Another thing that they developed up to this point was the ball over the top. You would see Uduba, who in the last few games was moved more centrally to be a striker, getting in behind defenders and maybe not finishing as crisply. The problem with this game is that we're not going to have a Duba. We're not going to have a Duba. We're not going to have a Duprez. Modi doesn't like to be a winger that runs all the way up, and Potsane may be our only threat in behind as Kaizer Chiefs. So when you're looking at it, it feels as though Pirates may have a better time or a different challenge when it comes versus Kaizer Chiefs. If Ranga can be more disciplined positionally and can be a little bit more physical with Sesan and Sibisi, his role will be to try pin those two back. And try open up the spaces at the top of the box. Think about the goal that Umfundo Vilagazi scored. They love top of the box shots. And you know, if you look at the stat that I don't necessarily like, but you can learn something from, EXG, the expected goals for Kaizer Chiefs, I believe, is top 3 in the league, if not number 1, which means that Chiefs should be scoring more goals from their play and the chances they create, but they can't finish, which is an issue. For me, I always say that Kaizer Chiefs is a busy team, but they're not effective. And there's a big difference between being busy and being effective. And that is where I'm going to transition to speaking a little bit about Orlando Pirates. Orlando Pirates is having the time of their lives. Orlando Pirates is winning almost every single game. They rarely lose, they rarely concede. Stark contrast with the Kaizer Chiefs, who concede almost every game. 17 goals scored in the league, 16 goals conceded. Pirates has 22 goals scored in the league, but they only have, 5 conceded in the league so far. So one of the strengths that Pirates has, for me, is that they're a team that can suffer. If there's one major change that Jose has made, is Pirates' ability to absorb pressure. Pirates' defense, particularly the two at the back, which has been a wonderful CBC. I think CBC has been an incredible player up to this point. I would never have thought that Usbisi would be rested for a derby over Xoki. And I know Xoki was injured, but you would have imagined that as soon as Xoki's back, you're going to rush him back in. But anyway, Sbisi and Sesane have grown in leaps and bounds. They've grown in leaps and bounds in terms of their one-on-one play. When they're marking, they've grown in leaps and bounds when they're playing physical players. They've gone into Africa and they've handled crosses, for example, very well. But I think what makes that defense solid for me is the unsung hero of Pirates' season, Makaula. Makaula is what you want from your CDMs. Makaula is what you want from your CDM. Makaula has the ability to go cover the wing, both wings. You'll find him covering. If you look at most of the fouls that Makaula concedes, it comes when he's helping either on the right or on the left, but mostly on the right-hand side to cover the right back. He has been phenomenal in that role in defense. But I think what Pirates' greatest strength is for this season, is the fact that they've spread the love. Pirates has 14 different scorers this league cycle. Pirates has Mfukeng who scores and assists. You have Nkota who in the last game I think was so mature. Usually his decision making is something that we complain about, but the game versus Richards Bay, he was actually finding the width and playing the ball in, instead of trying to be an inside forward and crowding each other. You find a Tito who can pop up, didn't play some of the games in the league, can pop up and score. Taletembata, at some point in the league, when Pirates needed him to get them over the line in some games, he comes out and he shoots from far. You have a Mabasa who's been scoring. You have a Mahupa who's been scoring. All in all, you have a team that all contribute. And why that is important is, if you watch the Pirates, it's not all the time that everybody is ticking and are playing well. And they're so good at compensating for each other's fluctuations. Okay, Mfukeng has a good 50 minutes in a game where he's not as influential in the game. But then somebody else steps up. Okay, it's Nkota's turn. CRP is going to score 2 goals. Okay, then Nkota is not playing well. Maybe the youth is catching up to him. Okay, Tito's going to stand up. And Tito's going to score 2 goals in a game. Hi, Utito, begangeko right, man. It hasn't looked good. He's going down. Okay, Mabasa will score 2 counter-attack goals to take the pressure. They've been so good at sharing that pressure across the team. And I think that is Pirates' key differentiator, along with the fact that they're clinical. I know people don't believe me when I speak of this, so I brought in some stats. Pirates doesn't create clear-cut chances. Pirates is not a team that is putting the players in 1v1s all the time. In fact, if you take away the 8 goals that Pirates scored versus Imarumo Gallants, so let's say that was a 1-0 win. And I know I'm just trying to make a point. Let's say that was a 1-0 win. In the league, that would mean that they've scored less goals than Kaizer Chiefs. But again, what makes Pirates different is where maybe they've given up trying to control the game all the time. Or they've given up, the fancy triangles. Or they've given up the overloading sometimes of wings. What they've found is they will find a way to score. Whatever is needed for that game, they will do it. And they'll come out of that game with that goal, with that 2 goals. And then they'll suffer. Pirates suffers. Pirates versus Richards Bay, Pirates versus TS Galaxy, Pirates versus Al Ahly away, Pirates versus Belouizdad. In the second halves a lot, are not a team that's in control. They're a team that's suffering. They're a team that allows the other teams to play. So if you look at the game versus Richards Bay, Pirates wins that game 3-1 if I'm not mistaken. But here's the funny part. Pirates had 4 shots on target versus Richards Bay. And those 4 shots on target, 2 of them came late from Umabasa. The goal that Umabasa scored and also the shot that he took against the keeper. In terms of big chances created, both teams created 2 big chances and both of them missed 1 each. So that speaks to the quality of the chance that Pirates is creating. They're scoring harder goals, but they're doing it at a rate that other teams can't. And to be fair, in the PSL, a lot of teams can't finish. We spoke about the Kaizer Chiefs, 3rd most goals in the league, but they should be, according to expected goals and the stats and the creation, they should be a lot higher. They should have at least 20 goals at this point, or 21 goals at this point. If you're looking at the stats raw, they should be looking at 25 goals. But they are professional, the Pirates. They get the job done. However it needs to be done, they go and do it that way, and they go about their day. When you look at the weaknesses of Orlando Pirates, I think the midfield, Makaula and Mbata, as great as they are defensively, Makaula more specifically, in terms of building the game, they don't touch the ball a lot. Makaula, we know, is not comfortable with the ball to the point where he wants to play out the game, play out the ball. So what Pirates does is they bypass the playmaking part and they play long diagonal balls to the sides. And what that does, and the reason why maybe they don't create as many chances, is number one, if you're playing a direct long ball into the left or right back, physically versus Nkota and Fukeng, most of the time they're going to win that ball. So what Pirates has also started doing is bringing up their wingers, their left and right back. So you'll find Hotto and Van Rooyen very high up the pitch in order to try and create overloads on the sides. So if you look at it, you'll have Van Rooyen and Nkota running in, but Nkota more comes inside and Van Rooyen maybe holds the line. You'll have Mfukeng coming in and you'll have Hotto running past him to create that confusion for the right back. And him and Tito often interchange that role. But what they do is they pull you back and forth. The problem is that coming from wide areas, it's very hard to take advantage of things because you are playing versus a set defense. That's basically, if you're on the left or right hand side, they're watching you. So if a team doesn't overcommit and maybe plays a midish to lowish block, what that does is that it starves Nkota of space to be able to run in behind. So then he comes into and drifts inside, and then it becomes a congested center. And if you watch when Makhupa plays the games, Makhupa tends to want to drop back into a false 9 type role, almost a 10 type role. And Tito falls out of the game because now that whole place is it's a whole bunch of people. They've remedied that a little bit with Mabasa, who stays a little bit on the line. For the second goal, I think what people didn't realize also is that on the last line, Umabasa dragged the center backs across. And when the ball was played to Mfukeng and he played it across, there wasn't a center back ready for Tito. In fact, there was Tito and Hotto on that side with one defensive player. Right? So I think they've remedied that a bit. The reason why it's a weakness in this case is Mabasa, Nkota, Mfukeng, Tito, Van Rooyen, Hotto, all in attacking spaces. Mbata following up, which means that in defense, you're basically left with Makaula and the two centre-backs. And if you think about the game versus Stellenbosch, what Stellenbosch did was, immediately when they won the ball, they broke in a direction. And what I said about Makaula, as incredible as he is, as he has been in covering the defense, he commits a lot of fouls because he's chasing. So he's often behind, especially if a team can catch you quick enough on the counter. He's often behind. And what teams have done, the few teams have done, is take advantage of the wide areas when Pirates is attacking. You think about how Makesi and Chirambadare took advantage of that space to cross in. You think about how Stellies took advantage of those spaces in order to get Titus in behind, and he scored a goal from that point because the two centre backs are also very slow. So those are some of those weaknesses. Mbata hasn't been himself. He's been missing a little bit in the middle. He hides and shies away from the ball, which makes it hard to play it up the centre. And maybe that's why Pirates wanted Jaden Adams, allegedly, to play it up the centre. What was one of Pirates' strengths last season was the fact that Uchaine could play the ball to Ndlondlo. Chaine could play the ball to Nda later on in the season when Ndlondlo fell out. He could play the ball to Nda, and Nda could take the role of being the primary ball player. You look at a Tim can take the ball and play it forward and get the ball to Tito, where Tito then becomes the influential Tito. Tito, coming back deep, is not strong enough. Is not strong enough in the deep lying playmaker role, the register role. He's not strong enough there. He often loses the ball there, or sometimes it's too deep. He gives away the ball cheaply, but it does the same thing. So if they had a player who could come in and maybe take responsibility for the first movement, then you'd see Tito and Mfukeng play a little bit higher up. Now, I want to speak about the opportunities that both teams have and what they can take advantage of when they look at this game. Sorry to interrupt the video that I'm sure you're enjoying, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of the support that you guys have shown me and my Overthinking Football platform. I'm a one-man band that's doing all of this, and I really do enjoy the comments about how, you know, Supersport needs to come fetch me and SABC and all of that stuff. And I think it speaks to the quality of the content, but also the amount of effort that I put in. So I just wanted to say thank you. But the truth is that Abu Supersport and all of those guys, yes, we're competing with them, but it's a completely different place. The sponsors are looking for former players, and to be honest with you, running some of these things is getting so difficult, and things have changed at home. So financially, it's a whole different world. So I wanted to try something new and come to the overthinkers, the people who watch the content, and say it would be incredible if you guys could contribute monthly towards the platform, towards keeping my lights on, but also making sure that all of the crazy things that I want to do, that I want to take Supersport on with, I can actually do. And just for 20 Rand every month, I think that would be an incredible contribution if you can make it. It may sound like a little, but if we can get a lot of people behind it, then we'll be able to carry on doing what I do. I'll be able to carry on giving you the content and also expanding it, because we don't have shows like this, and us content creators need help from our audiences. So I just came here to ask you if you can. Here is the account number that you guys can use in order to contribute. And I think, yeah, I'd be very grateful if you would. But anyway, let's get back to the video. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Like I said, I think if Chiefs wants to get something from this game, it's probably going to come from a counter. And what you have to do is to be pointed with your counters. It's not just about getting the ball up as quickly as possible. It's about exploiting the wide spaces of Pirates' defense. So if Mdushabalala is on the pitch, I'd want him, when we counter, to run into the gap where Van Rooyen is gone and go directly to try and pull Sesane out of position and take it from there. I'd want whoever's on the right wing, even though I know Siashota, to also, when Hoto pulls up and pulls forward, go and attack that space. I need Uranga, who is possibly our only fit striker, Uranga, to stay with the defensive line and keep them busy and keep them occupied so that you can free up the space right in front. So if Ranga can just get physical with Sesane and Sibisi, who we're assuming are going to start, or whoever's there, he needs to be similar to the game that the beginning of the Sundowns game, when the beginning of the first Sundowns game, where he guruzad ulibusa. He's going to have to be that presence so that they can't come out quickly to Sirino. I think, like I said, it's going to be very swift counters. Even historically, when Chiefs have scored versus Pirates, think about the Dupree's goal from the last derby. It has been, you break quickly, it's almost a two-man counter. And then, was it Tanzania last time? I'm forgetting. Played the ball into Dupree's, who was running on the line to go score. Line of the defense to go score. It can't be holding the ball. It can't be waiting for cross to come up and then join the attack and then this one join and that one join. It has to be swift, and you're not going to get that many chances like that in the game. I think Chiefs has to try and survive up to around, I'd say, the 65th minute. If you look at the Richards Bay game, Richards Bay came out in the second half swinging, and they got their goal, and they pressed the Pirates. Pirates in the second half usually tries to let teams play, but it's a trap. So if you don't take those chances, what Pirates does is they then transition on you. And when they counter you, they also have that thing where Abomfukeng, Abomabasa, they come alive when it's a quick play. You don't have to think too hard. The defenders are not back in line. It's 1v1, him and a defender close to the halfway line or whatever. They love those counters. Think about the goal they scored versus Ahly late. Think about the goal that they scored versus Richards Bay late. It's something that they do, which then takes me to the opportunities for Pirates and how Pirates should approach this game. I'm sorry to say it, but Kaizer Chiefs is defensively naive. Kaizer Chiefs, for the most part, believes that they can trust the guys who are playing at the back to be level-headed enough not to be taken advantage of. And that is where the problems come. They trust that Cross is going to be good 1v1. Cross and Frosler are going to be good 1v1 high up the pitch. They trust that the communication between Dotley and Ditlokwe, or Dotley and Miguel and Dotley, or Miguel and Ditlokwe, is going to be good enough that, you know, when Miguel goes up to go, when Miguel follows the right back to push up, that they're going to talk enough. Chiefs trusts that the CDMs are going to cover them properly in situations where it's a 3v2 or 4v3. You know, it's a transition, it's a counter. And that has been Chiefs' undoing. What that does for Pirates is that they're going to get a chance to play 1v1. Nkota versus Cross, Mfukeng versus Frosler. While I trust Frosler a little bit more than Cross, that is going to be the defining moments of this game, because not only do you have to face Nkota in that moment, you have to watch out for Van Rooyen, who's making an overlapping run. Van Rooyen, Shandu, Libito, Munyane, Ndlozi. You have to watch out for that overlapping run on that side. But then also, Mfukeng drifts inside and finds Utito. So you also have two players who are in the center waiting for the ball, while you also have to deal with Umabas. And I'm not going to lie, that feels like it's going to be too much for Kaizer Chiefs to handle defensively, unless they are defensively sound in this game, unless they are pragmatic, unless they are willing to play a very deep low block, which also scares me, because if you think about the Stellenbosch goal, that came when Chiefs had a lot of their players in position and back. Yes, it was a mistaken pass, but still, everybody was there, and they still conceded. What Chiefs can be happy with is that Pirates is not an aerial team in terms of crossing. So the spaces that are usually between Dotley and Miguel are probably not going to be there in this game, probably, unless Jose flips the script and plays that corridor cross that Umakhopa loves to have. If you think about the goals that he scored versus Chiefs, it's coming that space between the goalkeeper and the defense when the ball is put right there. So that's what I'm thinking. I don't think too much will be happening in the midfield wise. If anything, Kaizer Chiefs' midfield setup might give Talet Mbata a little bit more time. But Mart, if he starts, has shown that he's a warrior there in the center. I remember, I believe it was a chipper game where he was winning back a lot of balls and playing very well with Umtetwa. Motaung can also be a game changer there if Mart is not playing. More attacking, and he's got a very high work rate up high on the pitch. Doesn't help too much to try press Pirates high because they don't play the ball at the back like that. They're looking to go as quickly wide as possible. So I don't think we're going to see too much of that. And I'd love to see Shabalala giving Umakaula a run for his money. And I'd love to see Umtetwa trying to shadow Mfukeng in the 10, which is not easy. Like I said, if you look at the game that versus Richards Bay, the whole defense went this way. There were literally 3 players available, Mfukeng, Tito, and Hoto. It's by no means an easy feat to play. But I want to... Oh yeah, and also Chiefs has conceded the second most goals in the league, or third most goals in the league, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, third most goals in the league. Like I said, they score and they concede, which means that counter-attacking football that Pirates loves, that reminds them of last season, that's pretty much the default of how Chiefs set up. So Pirates is going to get a lot of counter-attacking opportunities. What I don't want to see if Sirino is playing is him dropping back and not playing up high. If you look at the games versus Sundowns, Sirino tried to be a hero, coming back inside and losing a lot of balls, which in turn meant that Sundowns was winning the ball back up high. Pirates is very good at high pressure. So if they try play it out from the back too many times, or they try to do that thing where they space out and give it to Mtetwa A1, Pirates lives for that. They love winning the ball back up high. A lot of their goals have come from them winning the ball back up high, and the chaos of all of that, they score. The thing I want to speak about more than anything, and maybe what might set Pirates apart from Kaizer Chiefs in this game, is going to be how they handle pressure. It's FNB Stadium. It's fully sold out. It's a game where everybody's expecting Chiefs to lose. And what we've seen from Chiefs players a lot is that they shrink in the moment. Even though the derby is different, I think they stand up a little bit, but they shrink in the moment. And when things go wrong, they go really wrong. Pirates' edge in this game is going to be the fact that they've gone into Africa and they've played high-stakes games up to this point. They've played a final of the MTN 8. They've played a qualifier for the CAF Champions League. They've played in the Champions League group, which they left unbeaten. And I think Pirates is a lot more calmer of a team this season, and they trust themselves. I think they have a quiet confidence, even to let you play, knowing that they will take their chances. But what also influences this thing quite a lot is the two coaches in terms of emotions. My critique about Nabi, and part of the reason why he wasn't sitting on the bench for the past few games, is that he tends to play into whatever's happening. The ref made a couple of bad calls. You see him standing and shouting, and the whole bench standing and shouting. Goalkeeper coach, assistant coach, Banban, all standing and shouting. It filters onto the pitch, where on the pitch the players start reacting. If you think about Abu Duba and how confrontational they've been at times, those things can take away from your control and your awareness and your composure and the game plan. Pirates has shown through a guy like Jose Riveiro, for example, that Jose Riveiro is a very calm coach. He's a very cerebral coach. He thinks. He's a deep thinker. He doesn't get swayed by pressure. If you look at that game versus Ahly, there was a time when I was like, no, they should go into defense. And he was like, no, I'm going to bring in my attackers because I know that my time will come. And the time came through Umabasa late in that game to seal the game. Jose has shown in big games, even versus Sundowns, that, in trophy games, he's willing to put Mfukeng on the bench and bring him in late and change the outlook of the game. And I'm not saying that this is a trophy, but it is a very big game. I think whether we want to admit it or not, the derby has a very emotional and spiritual tie to the PSL and to the teams. A win for Chiefs almost cures all sins in the league. A win for Chiefs almost makes the rest of the season a little bit easier for Nabi, because you can hold up the proverbial trophy of saying that they beat the Pirates. 2 goals for Ranga maybe make him perceived to be the best striker in the country by the way everybody will be reacting to it. So positively, this can do a lot. Negatively, I don't think this game is going to be, for Chiefs, I don't think this game negatively is going to be something that affects them too much. I think it will. It is a derby, but it's not going to be too much. I don't think anybody's expecting Chiefs to do much in this game. They're not expecting a win from the Kaizer Chiefs. And I feel as though when it comes down to it, with Kaizer Chiefs and a loss here, it depends how they lose. It can't be embarrassing, because that's going to be a completely different thing. I spoke about the emotions of the players and the coach. Us fans are also very emotional. So if this is embarrassing, that's maybe where it becomes super pressure for the coaches. But if it's a general loss, I don't think there's anything to do with it. Pirates going into their game versus Sundowns next week. This is a very important game because it's a 3 points where you can most probably try catching Mamelodi Sundowns should you beat them next week. It's also a big game rivalry, which could have some effect going forward if you get beaten by this Chiefs team. Maybe other teams start smelling blood. Maybe Pirates loses a little bit of the confidence. So the environment, the stadium, is also going to play a very big role in this. But for me, I'm looking forward to a very interesting game. Pirates has won the last 3 derbies. Overall, since 1985, when they say it's fully professional, Kaizer Chiefs has 31 wins versus Pirates has 18. There have been 28 draws in the 77 league games that have played up to this point. Both teams are scoring teams. At the very least, they get past the games with their 1 or 2 goals. The only difference is that Chiefs concedes at a very high rate and haven't been able to keep a clean sheet. So Pirates may be able to take advantage of that. My prediction, honestly, is going to be a 2-1 win for Pirates. I don't think it's going to be an easy game for them. I do think that it's going to be a little bit of a back and forth. But ultimately, I think Pirates' quality this season and the form and what they go into this game with is going to be too overwhelming for Kaizer Chiefs, who are either going to have to play it really safe or go pound for pound. So let's see how this game is going to pan out. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, everyone.